Hey y'all, Big Tim here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Old School and Bass with Big Tim. Today we're going to talk about lures, particularly hard baits. And we're going to start off talking about lures that you would use in cold water, much like what you'd have right now if you were able to get out and go fishing. You know, one of the number one lures for catching bass in cold weather has always been the jerk bait. So here is a old-fashioned Smithwick Rattling Rogue. It's got a few rattles in it. You can kind of hear them rattle. And this is a suspending model. And what you do with a rattling rogue, or jerk bait, I should say, is you make a long cast and reel it down to its desired depth, normally about 3 or 4 cranks at a handle. And then you kind of twitch it 2 or 3 times and pause it. Now, how hard you twitch it and how long you pause it is dependent upon usually how cold the water is. You know, the colder the water, the more twitch and less jerk you do, and the longer you pause. So if the water's hot, because a lot of people use these in the summertime too. If the water's hot, you might be jerking it and snapping it a whole lot, making that lure travel 3 or 4 feet every time you snap it. But in the wintertime, you know, the bait fish are generally moving a little less. So you don't want to snap it as hard, and you want to pause it for a longer period of time. So this is the old school Rattle and Rogue. These are really light lures. They're kind of hard to cast on a bait caster in a windy condition. I was always amazed with my dad how well he could cast these things in the wind. But if a good gust came up, he was going to be in trouble. One of the newer models is, this one's called the KVD Slash. The newer models, and you can kind of see them in there, have BBs or bearings that kind of roll around in there. When you cast it, that BB rolls to the back of the bait and makes it cut through the wind like nobody's business. You can cast these things in a good wind for a long distance. They're really nice to use. This is one of my favorite colors to use on clear water lakes. This is called Pro Blue. Works real well at Dale Hollow and Cumberland. So if you're going down there for maybe a high school tournament, you might want to think about getting one. One of my favorite jerk baits to use is the Megabass 110. I don't have it here to show you because I'm not here to try to sell the bait. I really like them, but they're 25 bucks. So that's why I'm showing you the KVD Slash. This dude right here is, I think, $7.99, somewhere around in there. 10 bucks. Let's call it 10 bucks. So it's less than half of what the Megabass costs, and it'll work a lot of the same way. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's just as good as a Megabass, because if it was, I wouldn't be using Megabass. But you'll definitely still catch fish on it. Lucky Strike, I believe it is. Yeah, Lucky Strike has another one that is like a 110 knockoff that has the weight transfer system in them. They'll cast real well. As far as colors go, I wouldn't do a whole lot of colors. Pro Blue, like I said, works in clear water situations. You might get in like a Sexy Shad for more overcast conditions. The old Clown, I don't have one here right now, but Clown is kind of a red-headed bait. That was my dad's favorite. He caught a ton of fish on that. And I caught a few years ago on it, but Pro Blue is my usual favorite now, because when I'm fishing a jerkbait, it's generally at Lake Cumberland or Dale Hollow, and it's generally a clear water situation. You'll notice I got a red hook on there. I'm a big believer in red hooks on shallower hard baits. To me, it gives the fish a target to hit at, and you want them to aim for the front of that bait, so if they miss, they might get these other 2 hooks. But I'm a big believer in red hooks on shallower crankbaits. Not so much in the deep ones that go, 15, 16 feet. But shallow water baits, top water baits, man, I really believe in it. I had a tournament one time at Cumberland. I was fishing a square bill crankbait. The first fish that I caught on it just barely had the last hook, the back hook. And I was like, well, he just didn't like that color or something, but I'm going to make an adjustment. And I put a red hook on it. And I caught 5 fish in 7 casts. and all 5 of those fish had the lure completely sideways in their mouth after putting that red hook on. So after that, I was a big believer in red hooks. Really, really believe in it. The next ones we'll talk about are some of the deeper crankbaits. This is another one of my Lake Cumberland favorites. Okay, this is called Dance's Sexy Shad. It's a bomber, fat-free shad. And really works well in clear water situations. It also has a nice tight little wiggle, kind of a faint little rattle. And it's another good cold water favorite. It's another great one to use at Cumberland. This dude's generally about $6, I think it is, somewhere around in there. Another deep water favorite. This used to be the end-all be-all when I was younger. A lot of people actually just super love these Bandit crankbaits. This is a Bandit Series 300. It's got a little BB in the bill to help it dive a little bit deeper. These things will go about 10 feet. And this happens to be a chartreuse with a blue back. Good color. And real popular amongst some of the old school guys. They're right around $5-6 as well. Not very expensive considering what baits are. Funny thing is, you used to be able to buy those for $2. This is another one, deeper running crankbait. This is a Strike King Series 3 XD. This is a red bait. I think they call it chili crawl. Yeah, chili crawl. Red baits are always good in the wintertime. You know, I guess it has something to do with the fact that when the crayfish molt, they may come out red, or when they come out of hibernation, not when they molt. So this is Strike King Series 3 XD. That'll go a little bit deeper. I think it'll dive to like 12 feet. Okay. Another Lake Cumberland favorite and another red bait is the RK Crawler from Spro. This is the original RK Crawler. Will dive down about 9 to 13 feet. And like I said, it's a good Lake Cumberland, Dale Hollow bait. Works a lot of other places too, don't get me wrong. The only issue that I have with this bait is the fact that it's like $11-12. So it's a little pricey for some of the high school anglers that are trying to get down and fish, you know, Cumberland and that for their tournaments. Another one of the favorite amongst the pros, one of the questions I love to ask pros is, if you're not sponsored by a bait company, what is your favorite lure to throw? Most of them will say this one. The Rapala Shad Rap. This is a Shad Rap 7. Okay, they'll dive about 7 feet when the fish get up in the shallower range. Find you some Rip Rap or something and throw a Shad Rap. I didn't mean Rip Rap, Shad Rap. Just happened to work that way. But Shad Raps are a real popular cold water bait because they have a tight little shimmy, wiggle. And like I said, that's one of the favorites amongst the pros. Along the line of a Shad Rap, my favorite was always the Fat Rap. It's got a different bill to it. It's a little square bill. These are both fairly light lures. You can cast them on bait casters, but if a wind comes up, they're a little bit more difficult to deal with. Something else that you can consider in those windy conditions, again, dive 7 to 9 feet. That's a Spro Little John. Again, the problem with the Spro Little John is the fact that it's a little bit more pricey. It's about $12, I think it is. So it's got a nice little faint rattle in it as well, but it's heavy, so you can cast it on a nice windy day. Going back to the old school Bandit. This is a Bandit Series 200. It doesn't have the BB in it. Okay, this one is what they call a chartreuse brown spatterback. This was a good color for me a few years ago at Green River Lake. Haven't caught hardly any on it since, but then again, I don't throw a lot of Bandits anymore. Okay, so those baits right there are going to run basically in that 5 to 12 foot range. Now there's another bait that's one of my cold water favorites, but truth be known, to me, a rattle bait is a 12-month lure. You can use a rattle bait 12 months out of the year. Okay, I happen to like the Strike King Red Eye Shads. I really like them. I'll mention them by name basically because they are less expensive than the original rattle trap. I used to use rattle traps a lot, but these are like $1 cheaper most places. And to me, they're a better bait because when you're reeling them, they're running through the water like this. And when you pause it, it shimmies as it falls, as opposed to a rattle trap that just kind of more flutters. This looks a little bit more natural. I wished I'd have got another color out here because really and truly, to me, there's only, about 5 colors to have. This one is a good color to use on a very cloudy, very overcast day. My number one color to use, I like this more often than not, is the Chrome Sexy Shad. Standard Chrome Sexy Shad. This will work great on a good sunny day. Then on one that's kind of partially cloudy, the Gold Chrome Sexy Shad. This one get me in trouble. A lot of people don't like to let this color out of the bag. But this is called Green Gizzard Shad. It's a really good color in the summer when fish are chasing bait or an overcast condition. The only one that I don't have that I would like to show you is a red one, Chili Crawl, like we had before. Red is always good earlier in the year, so you might consider those. Now, the thing with the rattle baits, the red eye shads and rattle traps, they don't float. They are sinking baits. So if you cast them out and wait, it's going to sink. It'll go all the way to bottom if you let it. So there were a couple of years ago techniques where people would rip it off the bottom, and that'll work, but you're going to get hung up a lot. For the most part, this is a cast and retrieve lure. You cast it out, retrieve, pause, retrieve, pause. Your speed will vary by, the fish will generally tell you, but start out slower. Okay. The last bait that we're going to talk about is the square bill. Square bills are kind of the workhorse of the crankbait community because they have these square bills. They get hung up a lot less. And my favorites that I use the majority of the time are the Strike King KVD series. Most of mine are silent. You can buy some that have rattles in them. This one here is called Chartreuse Perch. Again, you'll see the red hook. I like the KVDs because they're not very expensive. They're like $6.99, something like that. But they also have what is called hunting action. And what that means is as you're reeling it through the water, it doesn't come straight at you like this. It kind of comes and stays in a hunting action. Chartreuse Perch is a nice color for river fishing. We like chartreuse and black. Anytime you're dealing with dirty water, chartreuse and black is hard to beat. Again, this is going to get me in trouble with some guys out there. The Green Gizzard Shad, tough to beat in a lot of situations, particularly clear water. Then you have variances of square bills. This is the last one that we're going to talk about today. These are the shallow square bills. The standard square bills that we just showed you come in a couple different models. The ones I showed you were 1.5s. But you have 1.0s that are a little bit smaller, about an inch long. And both of those dive about 3 to 5 feet. Then you also have the 2.0s, which are a little bigger, 4.0s and 8.0s. Those are bigger baits for specific purposes. The 2.0s you can get away with in ponds. This is the KVD Shallow. The bill's a little different. You can see it's more straight up and down. Okay, this one is designed to stand those real shallow water applications. I've got another one here that I bought specifically for a tournament. This is a Spro, but they stay real shallow. So if you're fishing in 1.5 foot of water and you want to throw a crankbait because they're not eating a spinnerbait or something, that would be the way to go. So again, that's basically it for lures. We're going to talk about top waters. We're going to talk about soft baits and everything else later on down the road. But if you have any questions about what we've talked about here today, by all means, get to the bottom, write a question out. give me a thumbs up and, tell your buddies so they all subscribe. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.